Hi, so we're live, and today we're going to be talking about humility and conflict resolution in relationships, which is a massive problem, especially in the individualistic, egotistic West. And I want to make it part of our Passport Bros series, where I'm encouraging people to, especially Westerners, to go abroad and find traditional wives. And what's that got to do with conflict? Because you're going to although there's going to be more willing wives who want to be traditional and have your children, there are going to be cultural conflicts. I've just come from Ghana where I found a wife, so we can talk about that. So, who am
Congratulations.
I? Who's Claire? Sorry, go on. You're going to say?
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's not all done and dusted, and I'm going to talk about all the kind of details, but yeah, thank you. Yeah. I mean, very nice girl. Want to talk about that, and I want to talk about. I like to be super real, but like, oh, what are the issues? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's kind of a natural part of the try and error process, and it's very important that people
The
realize
what
it's kind of like
process?
trial and error.
Oh, trial and error. Yes.
It might maybe it sounds terrible for people who are kind of very romantic and stuff. She's a lovely girl, very kind, whatever, all this kind of stuff. But there are kind of like these I call business elements. Like, okay, I need to go back there, and there'll be all these cultural expectations. You got to do this, and I say, well, I'm only here for 2-3 weeks, and you're gonna have to cut out some of your cultural hopes, possibly, and it's going to be tough for you. That's what I've been telling her today. So anyway, so there's all these kind of things I want to talk about, but I really want to focus on humility. I think it's a really beautiful thing. Humility and patience, actually. Patience is the key to humility. Should we just say who we are in a couple of seconds? I'm a Muslim. I'm not an ordinary Muslim, but an Ahmadi Muslim, which is a revolutionary type Muslim. We want to change the world through love. Sounds all fancy and what's it, hippie type stuff. We don't believe in fighting, and we've got an amazing reputation around the world. Claire's been to one of our what's it called
Jalsana, is it?
conventions and stuff, so she knows a bit about that. And Claire, despite her appearance, is not a Muslim. Tell me something about yourself, Claire.
I'm a political philosopher, and I think the way forward for the West is Sharia for non-Muslims. And I know it's controversial, and I thank Khalid for his patience with me in entertaining the idea, because it's quite new for Muslims, and not all of them like it or approve of it.
Yeah, I think it's a halfway. I mean, yeah, there's great things. I think it's great that you understand that Sharia is the future, and I think that word Sharia needs to be understood better, because if you go by the media, it just means, I don't know, what does it mean to most people? Just like women can't drive or something, and chopping off hands. But we both agree on chopping off hands. It sounds terrible to some people, um, liberals who. I mean, do we
And
both agree on
only
chopping
for
off hands?
violent criminals out, and three strikes and you're out. For as
That
far as
kind
I'm
of stuff,
concerned,
exactly.
yeah.
We believe in being tough on criminals and kind to innocent people. But anyway, that's a side topic. But yeah, that's kind of like where you're coming from. You're not a Muslim, but you get through just logical reasoning that the Islamic laws seem to work, um,
Yes.
if you apply them. So cool. Now let's try to stay on track. And a bit of a rewind from last week's show, where I just gave you like a summary of what happened when I visited Ghana the other week, looking for a wife, but also other stuff. Like I've made a lot of friends, and I've got some, let's say, family background there. But I'm not going to go into that. Some nice others, lots of other nice stuff there. Um, so I'm a big fan of being a passport bro. Why is that? What does that even mean? In short, it means something like Western women are terrible. Um, if you're a decent human being, or decent man, I should say, looking serious about getting married because you know you need to. it's good for you as a human being to build long-lasting relationships, then I encourage you to go to places where there's lots of women who are eager to be your wife, and just make it the easiest possible. Get married the easiest possible way, rather than going through like searching for a needle in a haystack in Western society. Just go to a place where it's kind of the reverse. Like everybody wants to marry you, have your kids, have lots of sex with you, all the basic things that human being or men need, and they feel ashamed to ask for now because it's so rare. I think, Claire, you say something while I post the invitation link for Mike. He might want to jump in. He's already saying hello. Hi, Mike.
Yes, hi, Mike. Well, obviously, we need to be patient with each other because we are flawed, and so are other people around us. But in particular, we may be most disappointed with our nearest and dearest, really, because we rely on them so much. So, while we know, I think at some level we are to be especially patient with them, in practice we are not.
Interesting. Yeah, it's true. Um, we are often very angry with our nearest and dearest, and I think one of the most famous statistics is that the most conflicts in families is during Christmas. Have you heard that one?
Oh, yes, yes. Well,
Yeah.
any enforced being together with lots of people can be a strain. Yes.
Well, that's a sad. It's sad that it's a strain, or can be a strain, um, but it's all to do with this lack of humility in Western society. So, just to give, like, I like think stories help people, right? So, I jump on a train. I mean, not a train, sorry, plane to Ghana, and I'm telling Christians about my Muslim perspective, Christian Africans, and so each society has different sensibilities and characteristics, as the Quran says, by the way, and their strengths and weaknesses. And so I find Africans are relatively humble. Like uh, the people I'm talking to are like, yeah, you're right, that makes sense, that kind of thing. Like, but over here, when we're talking, people just argue for no reason, and like they're so obviously wrong, like a man is a woman and stuff, and their argument's totally failing, yet they still argue, right? So this is, I think, a really important thing that Westerners need to know, because their relationships are going down the toilet. They're um all sorts of relationships, just like, even family relationships. And I want to do a little bit of a breakdown. This is a document. I always, for people who know our streams, I always have a little bit of a document in the description. You can check it out anytime. That's what's on the screen. And I want to do a really quick summary of some of the ideas which I think are mind blowing for the average person. Some of the things are just for partly for entertainment. Claire can be very angry at me in what's it called, in her WhatsApp. I won't say kind of stuff she'll say, right? And I use some of these methods, right? So Claire, just listen out. You might find this quite funny.
Hmm.
You do get angry with me, don't you? Right? It's
Well,
like I don't work hard.
I guess in my old age, I get more irascible more quickly than before, I suppose.
Sure. Okay. And then you'll see some of the techniques I employ, and you can see if they're, or you see if you can recognize what I use, right? Anyway, so um, in short, before I get to the specifics of what Prophet Muhammad said to Muslims how to deal with women and similar things, um, here are key ideas. First of all, the conflicts we have are stupid, really dumb conflicts if you find out what the root of them are. It's pure arrogance that causes these conflicts in Western relationships. Um,
Ego.
and ego, arrogance, ego. What's the opposite of that? Is called humility, right? But it's easier said than done, being humble, right? First of all, one thing I like about and something that kind of accidental that came up on the what's it called, the thumbnail, when I was searching for a thumbnail. It was like humility and humanity are similar things. It's not an Islamic idea. It might be an Islamic idea. I don't know. But in Islam, we're told any wisdom you find is lost property of a Muslim. So why not take on that wisdom, right? But it has, in my little few travels I've had, I do find humility brings back our humanity. Like if you're really arrogant, like we're always just fighting and we're always disconnected. So I think there's some truth in that, right? So here's a why.
Yes,
That's a
otherwise
good
it would be
why.
me first, you give way. I want to go
Yes.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm first, I'm right, you have to agree with me, and then there's no connection. You can't really, you can't be friends with people like that. But in the relaxed south, let's say, of southern hemisphere, or the warmer countries, I should say, people just sit around, they don't fight, they just talk, they disagree. Like, okay, I just went to my dry cleaners just now. They just returned my blanket, cleaned it up, right? For next to no money, by the way. I just love everything, right? Anyway, so I did a video with them the other day. Like I was just saying how lovely they are. Didn't my You can check it out. They're on my one of my latest YouTube shorts. And then he was checking out the videos and goes, "You're an Ahmadi, aren't you?" Right? So this is a Muslim country, and when Ahmadi Muslims, my kind of Muslims, we're not allowed to officially say we're Muslims. We're not allowed to officially preach, all this kind of stuff. So it is maybe like considered a sensitive topic. But he goes to me like, "Oh, those people in Hyde Park, they were so rude to you," and I would never call you a disbeliever like they did, right? So this is the kind of conversations people in these countries often have. I can't say it's all true. In Pakistan, they kill us, right? But I think there's a lot of less conflict. I don't know. Anyway, um, um, so yeah, I can't remember my train of thought, but let's continue with
I
the
think you
stuff.
were talking about humility.
Yes, that's right. So when people have humility, there's more humanity, there's more connection. People just fight less. If you're going to fight with everybody, you're not going to have many friendships. There's not going to be much humanity between us. So that's kind of like the why for trying to be more humble. You'd just be happier. You'd have more friendships. You'd be more connected. You actually have a wife that you want to be with. Because quite frankly, in a husband-wife relationship, what is the most beautiful thing there is, right? Such a beautiful, like, intimate connection with somebody, but at the same time it causes the most, let's say, havoc, right? The most strain, because we start expecting more of people. Is it like, I don't know if this is the correct statistic, but like most murders are between husbands and wives or something like that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, which is, it's interesting, right? So you need you need to do something to preserve this beautiful, beautiful thing that's dying out, which is, marriage essentially. And this is what our whole series is about. Okay, so that's a why. Humility can fix this thing, but what's the method? Because it's easier said than done, right? So be patient. And the word patient in Arabic from the Quran is really beautiful in so many ways. One of the meanings, what if have I posted it here? Oh, I posted it here. So being humble, according to the verse of the Quran that I've put here, and seek help with patience and prayer. And this indeed is hard except for the humble in spirit. Okay, chapter 2, verse 46. Do click on that verse. But anyway, when it comes to the word, I was thinking about this word. This is when I met Claire in Speaker's Corner, I was blown away by the fact that she knew the deeper meanings of the word sabr. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, it
It's
means
patience.
patience. Hmm.
Yeah, wait, and it doesn't just mean well, it means patience on the surface level, but there is this one, two, three of what it means practically. Um, First of all, it means to. It might sound strange to a Western or just an English person that one word can mean so many things, but it does. Okay, it means to adhere to reason or the law, to restrain yourself. And this is the one when you were here, sorry, when I saw you in Speaker's Corner, I was focusing on, which is this kind of sense of no difference between feeling highs and lows, like you've submitted your emotions, as it were, to God. I'm going to focus on that for a second, but the reason and sticking to the laws of God, that's incredibly powerful as well. If you want to overcome the arrogance and the fighting, whatever, and be humble, you need to be constantly at this calm situation where you've already calmed down your ego before any potential conflict. Does that kind of make sense? Like you can't if you can't be this very excitable person and then think that when a testing situation comes along, which you will always have in a relationship, that suddenly you're going to be zen calm. You've got to be like that all the time. That's going to be who you are. That kind of makes sense. You need to have this sabr or patience mentality, this calm, no highs, no lows. If you get too high, too excited, then you'll fluctuate between the highs and lows too much. You've got to be at this zen inner peace mentality all the
Yeah,
time.
yes, and
Cool.
we should speak, slowly in a low tone, and yes, in a friendly tone. Because if I talk really quickly and I shout at you, then I think you will want to do the same to me. So
That's that. Totally agree. Totally agree. When we're already angry, I tend to, well, as a man, okay, and this is the thing, I think more is expected of men than of women in Islam, right? So in any conflict situation, my wife might just get all emotional, and we're like, okay, as a woman, she gets emotional, fine, right? And we'll look at some examples from Prophet of the sayings of Prophet Muhammad to support that sort of idea. um, and so when I'm listening to her, I'm like calming down. I'm not talking half the time, let her fizzle out all the anger, whatever. So totally agree. I love that. Actually, it's very true. Just stay calm, talk less, wait for um, the anger
wait
to
for her
die
to
down. So,
finish.
yeah, wait for her to finish. But also, this is something I'm currently doing with my new wife to be. It's like, if there's a difficult thing I'm going to ask you to do, I tell her, tell me tomorrow your opinion, right? Just let it, that you can share it a little bit, but a lot of the difficult things are going to be against her culture, and her immediate reaction has been like, oh, that can't be done, that's impossible. It's like, okay, give it a day at least. um
Mhm.
so yeah, I think it's a very helpful thing to realize the weaknesses of human beings, which is we're 99% emotional and like 1% logical, really. And if you want, like maybe 2% logical, let's calm down a little bit, give it a day, give it time, stuff like that. So I think that's really important to be humble. Oh, let's check. I can't remember what this word meant according to the deeper Arabic. Humble means is derived from being lowly, humble, submissive. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's something I was saying earlier on. Like, you submit essentially your ego and therefore your emotions to God. Like, it's not all about you. You don't have to win the debate. Like, this is a common problem between husband and wife. Like, we are eager to win the debate and we don't want to concede, right? There's another verse of the Quran which I shared with my wife earlier on with a because we've got some debates or arguments at the moment. It's like God says it's not a sin to find resolutions, and then it also teaches that some major or common problems that cause let's say conflict between husband and wife, but I won't go into that particular one because that'll be another sidetrack. Anyway, so humble, humility, and patience. And patience as in meaning calming down, and also adhering, like number one says here, to laws of God, like as much as you can, which is hard sometimes. Anyway, so if I was to summarize, follow the laws of God, which to choose which customs to follow. So going back to the passport bros thing, there are going to be, okay, I'm going to go to like I've been watching videos on passport bros in the Philippines. And in the Philippines, for example, uh, very easy to find somebody. But at the same time, do you know much about the Philippines? Because you're from Malaysia, it's not too far away from you.
Well, I've been there.
been there, but you don't really know much about it. Okay, cool. Um,
Mm.
but they're very eager to find, a husband from a white man. But at the same time, they have a lot of expectations. Like, since you've got all the money, like if you're a white man, your currency would have a lot more value than what they have. There are a lot of poor people there. They expect you to kind of give a lot of money. Well, relatively a lot of money to their standards to the rest of the family, like support a lot of their
Mhm.
very poor family. And so there's all these different expectations. It's not actually that hard, but at first that might be really difficult from somebody coming from an individualistic, selfish society. So you just have to balance it right. Um, Same thing here in Jordan. There's all sorts of things that I thought were really weird, like you're not supposed to eat if you go to get on a taxi. You're not supposed to eat in front of the taxi driver. It's really rude without offering your food. I remember like 15 years ago finding that really rude. Now I consider it really rude myself. Like I wouldn't eat in front of a taxi driver because they're not just a worker; they're everybody's a friend here, considered supposedly, right? Um,
Mhm.
what was this? Always stay calm, handle the inevitable to handle the so you can handle the inevitable annoyances of life. So stay calm before the problems start. Don't think you're suddenly going to be calm when the problems start. You have to have this sort of zen inner peace. Don't get too excited. This is a weird thing for most people. Like I don't get too excited. I do really cool exciting things all the time, but I'm never really excited. I don't know. Do you ever see me particularly excited, or do I look excited? I don't know. How do I come across?
You seem quite calm on the whole, I'd
Cool,
say.
right? But I do loads of crazy things all the time. So I don't know if I mentioned, like, even going to Ghana. First of all, the flight was 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't have a visa, but the flight said, like, you have to have a visa before you can get on the plane. I was like, I'm just going to turn up anyway. There's like
Mhm.
endless crazy things I had to do, but I'm always calm. Right, I don't get excited. I don't go, oh, I'm gonna go to Ghana and find a wife, and I'm like, yeah, hopefully it'll be cool. Do you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
like you can do exciting things, but you don't have to be excited. Don't be excited. Sounds terrible, but just to make it more kind of appealing, because you say like, who doesn't want to have an exciting life? What you should go for is a sort of inner peace, which is a completely different dimension. Did we talk about that ever before? Like instead of the kind of like the very short spectrum of excitement and depression, there's another dimension, completely different way, called inner peace, which gives you kind of deeper joy of life.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
I
I
don't
kind of
think we
that's
discussed it before,
we
I
have
mean,
or not.
no, we haven't. I don't remember.
Okay, cool. So I'll give the short version. Go for inner peace, which gives you a lot of joy in your life without actually getting too excited. Sounds really weird. Maybe that's a topic for another time. So yeah, always try to stay calm and humility. Yeah, we fight for no reason. Um, what does this say? Humility, the idea that you do not have to have what you want right now helps with patience. Yeah, cool. Okay. Connects the ideas of humility and patience. Like you don't have to do everything you want. Like I think a lot of the time the reason why we fight is like you want something, and like sure you can have it, but maybe not today or something. Whatever it is that you're fighting about, maybe just give it a bit more time. Have some patience. So okay, here's a bit of fun, right? You have to. I'm gonna quote some things from Prophet Muhammad, okay, and then see which one I use on you, Claire. What do you think? Good game.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so number one, shall I tell you? I mean, some of those are going to be pretty obvious, which I don't use on you. I don't know, but anyway, because it didn't have makes much sense. But anyway, shall I tell you which is the best of treasures? A good wife. She pleases her husband when he looks at her, obeys him when he directs her, and watches over his possessions in his absence. So this is going to be a mix of like what the wife should do, what the husband should do. Okay. The best of you are those who treat their wives best. Do not strike the handmaidens of Allah. I've never hit you, have I? Okay, sorry, doesn't apply yet. Okay, it's going to be pretty obvious which ones I use, but which one I use on you. But anyway, a woman is like a rib. If you try to straighten it, you will break it. But if you let it be, it will be of benefit to you despite its bend. And the last one, women are in need of shelters. Oh yeah, this is the one. Okay, sorry. Whoops, I kind of gave away. Women are indeed no in need of shelter, so provide for them with homes. Some of them are afflicted with contrariness, so strain it with forbearance and silence. Which one do I use on you?
You mean tactically? Um, I guess you. Well, I don't. Well, I'm not your wife, so you haven't used any
Yeah,
of them.
but still, you're a woman, so I apply it anyway.
Okay, well, you haven't provided me any shelter, and you haven't
Yeah,
tried to straighten me, and
that's
I guess you
true.
treat me quite well, but obviously not as a
What does
wife.
contrariness mean? I didn't check it, but contrariness means like you argue, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, just being perverse.
yeah, so forbearance and silence. So sometimes I don't even bother replying.
Oh, right. Well, that's a bit a good way because sometimes it's just better not to respond because then you'll start something. Yeah.
Yeah, I might reply to one with a kind of a silly response and then like just leave it. Right, quite frankly, I've got so many other things to do rather than kind of getting you. And you're just, I kind of learned as well, kind of quite early on. Sometimes you just write stuff. You want to get it out of your system as well, isn't it? Sometimes I remember quite early on, you were writing me like 10 messages. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not even like, but you were just testing out your ideas at times as well. Um,
Yeah, I
so
mean, I
anyway,
don't get angry
well,
with people like, "You haven't responded to every single one of my message. What's up with you?" I
yeah.
don't. I mean, I just sort of leave it really,
Yeah,
having got it out of my system.
sure. And do you think, what do you think about some people? In some ways, I might disagree with this forbearance and silence. I think everything has its balance. But what do you think about this technique? And I think for people to kind of be aware, right, the context of what we're trying to do here. Sure, this is marriage training or marriage classes, but I'm kind of focusing specifically I think because I'm trying to always get real solutions for Westerners, and maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but the passport bro situation means it's a Westerner uh, finding a woman. So let's say woman, a wife, a traditional wife, right? So that Westerners, because these classes are really for Westerners, not for those traditional wives, because they don't they're not really going to watch this. Um, it's like, how do you deal with these ladies when they, go a
Act
bit
up.
crazy,
Yes.
act up, right? And it
Mm.
does happen. There's a, if you follow for example, the Filipini type, there's a lot of videos on how to deal with Philippine women if you're trying to marry one. Um, there's something called a tantrum. Basically, is another word for tantrum, right? And they'll go mental for a day, and all the experienced white men will be like, okay, we'll just kind of ignore them for one day, and then they'll get over it and come back to it. And it's exactly what this thing is saying, like forbearance and silence. Just leave it alone. It's not a perfect solution. I think there is a bit of balance needed there. But anyway, what's your opinion on that as a method for dealing with conflict? If you're that we're specifically thinking of how Western men, should deal with these Eastern women.
Well, the men are usually the silent type. I mean, imagine if a man responded to every single provocation of the woman and you know you know just started talking like a woman and talking quickly and then started crying and blaming the other person and that would be maybe not a good way of dealing with things. So there has to be some
Interesting.
contrast.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Like, first of all, men don't talk as much anyway, so it's quite easy to relatively be silent. That's cool. I like that. And also, it doesn't. You're. It's very interesting. You say it doesn't seem very masculine to bicker and argue as much as a woman. Maybe it's more
Yeah, but
masculine
then
to
then
stay calm.
if you are silent, she'll just go on and on and on and on and on. She'll just nag or So, you know, if you
She
don't
won't
respond,
stop.
she'll
So
just
you're
keep
saying
talking, right? She won't stop.
that's
Don't you think?
interesting. You're
Don't
saying
you think that
if
happens?
she's nagging and I'm staying quiet, for example, she will keep nagging forever. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think it might happen, and it does happen. I mean, I do have
But
female
me
friends.
and you situation, right? Say you're just getting angry on WhatsApp, right? And then I don't reply. What happens then?
Then it's like
What do
a
you
game
do?
of
What's
ping
your
pong
normal
or
response?
tennis. Eventually you get tired of
Yeah, yeah.
serving
What did
the
you say,
ball.
Sly? Tennis.
Tennis or ping pong. You
Why
have
is it
to
like
serve the ball. You have to get the ball over the net. But if it is never returned,
oh,
eventually you get bored and you'll walk away. But
that's
if it's
right. That's
squash, it's
true.
a different thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. But even then, it's quite tiring just to play by yourself. Yeah, yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Interesting analogies. Yeah. Okay. So those are the key ideas. Um, let's see. We're getting all sorts of interesting responses. I don't know what that last one's about. Anyway, so we've got Mike saying sup, and it's all good, Mike. You can join us. I put the link in the chat. Uh, I was just at a bar and the girl had the most beautiful eyes. Mike, stop staring and do something about it. Ask her out, okay? One thing I'm thinking about discussing, Claire, and I'm just going to use some inappropriate words, but why Western men, why Western no, white men or Western women. Oh God, let me get my sentence correct. Why Western men are pussies? Does that sound really terrible? But I just feel like, what's wrong with these people? Like, just do something about it. Like, get married already. I mean, do you think like there's certainly an issue? There's like complaining, crying, whinging, and not kind of doing anything about getting married. Is that a bit harsh? What do you think,
Well, I
Claire?
mean, they do say things like, "Why buy the milk? Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?" With regard to
Prostitution.
sex. Well, not necessarily prostitution. You could in theory, pick up a girl from a bar and have sex with her and move on to another one the next day. You could, in theory, do that.
Yeah, I mean,
For
you
for,
know
for,
what? In
for your
some
love.
ways, if a man had the guts to go and do that, I'll be like, at least that's a stage. But I just feel like there's too many people. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not statistically wrong. That just most men don't even have the balls to do anything. You know what I mean? Get up and do something. They're just crying about a relationship 100 years ago that went wrong, and they're no longer going to have another relationship. Like statistically, 50% of men. This is all across Europe and the States and maybe Canada. Are not in even relationships. So 50% of men under 30. Did I say under 30? But yeah, that's a terrible statistic. So people should just go and do something about it. Stop staring at women with beautiful eyes. They all have beautiful eyes, probably, if you
He's
stare
trying
long
to
enough.
make me jealous, I think.
Oh, because you've only got eyes. I get it. Okay, now I get it. I get it. All right, never mind. Anyway, so foreigners bashing us again. Foreigners bash. So that'll be me, I guess. I'm the foreigner, and you're a foreigner as well, aren't you? Chinese, Malaysian, or something. Um,
I didn't think I was bashing them. Yeah.
I know, but they're very sensitive. These white people. So it's like everything's bashing. You look at them the wrong way, they start crying. So that's the like. SB, you a man or a woman? Because maybe we need to about Western men stop being pussies. Um, oh, this is nice. Salam alaikum. It means peace be upon you and the blessings of God and his I don't know something else. And I'll say on you too. Okay, wa alaikum assalam. And weird one. I don't know what this is. Prophet was not a child molester, as the thief says, and then purple pink hands. I don't know. I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, do feel free to jump into the stream. I put the link up. Jump on camera and share your thoughts. Um, Yeah. What else do you want to? I mean, I've kind of outlined everything I wanted to say about humility. Probably could go into it more. It's always helpful to have somebody who disagrees and you can kind of explain
Well,
into more
humility
detail.
is a very useful concept because if you are humble, then you will be easier to correct and be more likely to admit mistakes. But a lot of Westerners do this doubling down. It's like, well, I found out, my lie has been found out. I'm going to tell an even bigger lie. This idea of doubling down,
Yeah.
and they won't admit that it was wrong. And a lot of these people have beliefs that they've held for a long time, and it's all about blaming and hating particular groups. And the longer they have, you know, hated, Jews or Muslims or whatever it is they hate, or whoever it is that they hate, they're not going to say, oh, perhaps I was wrong to blame all these innocent people, blah, blah, blah. So they'll just double down. And you may find that a lot of their conspiracy theories don't even make sense. And then I think what has happened is that they only pretend to believe in certain things as a way of showing hatred to a particular group or individual. And so their belief systems are just based on hatred rather than acknowledging
Yeah, and
error,
then they're stuck
correcting
in a
error.
rut for their whole lives on one stupid like situation. Like, yeah, and then people just there's so much pride that it stops you from learning and moving forward. And we all need to move forward. We've all got flaws, you know. We're born knowing nothing, right? And it's a case of like keep learning, keep making mistakes until you and keep making progress. But if you think you're right from the beginning, like that's just the stupidest thing. You're gonna really be stupid that way. That's the recipe to be stupid. Like I'm happy to say I'm probably wrong in loads of things. Like I'm always corrected in so many things. There might not be massive political things, but like in life, I know I'm wrong in so many ways just by virtue of being brought up British and stuff. Like, what do I mean by that? I know when I go to these warmer countries like where I am right now, right? I know I'm kind of deep down more selfish and arrogant and colonial and want to take over everything. And there's some good things about that as well. You might say, I think we've discussed it, like the British Empire. There was something good about it. They made all the train lines in India and stuff like that. Yeah, and
Well,
there
we are
must have
both
been.
products of the British Empire.
Sorry,
We are both products of the British Empire, are we
that's
not?
right. Yeah, yeah, we certainly are, and it's affected our thinking probably a lot as well, and in positive and bad ways. But at the same time, I know there's some weaknesses in it. Like I'm kind of more selfish than the average person, even though I'm kind of genetically Pakistani with all this, whatever that is. Anyway, the point is that like I know there's loads of weaknesses. There might not be massive weaknesses that, mm, like stupid weaknesses, like not believing in God. But actually, I did that as well. I was an atheist as well, right? So we've all got like loads of issues to deal with. Like it's just plain stupid to think that you know everything and you're right. There's like loads of maybe I don't like maybe I need to keep telling people how I'm wrong in loads of things before people to realize that I don't think I'm right about everything. Um, let's just get that. I don't know if that comes up. I don't know. But the point
Well,
is, like,
I think the atheism is not very helpful to them, because if
hmm.
you all think you're equal and no God doesn't exist, then you'll always be fighting each other to get the top position. And this
Tell me about
is
that equal thing. I didn't understand. Like, if you're an atheist, do you think we're all equal or something? What was that?
well, because then you'll think that you always challenge authority with who are you to tell me what to do? You're only another
I get it.
person. Well, if you acknowledge the existence of God, then you might think there is some kind of social order that is
Mm.
part of the divine order, or at least you would know that you're not God, and nor is
Yeah,
everyone else, kind of thing, which
very interesting.
people don't uh, really
Yeah,
understand.
that's interesting. I have to think about that, but it kind of sounds about right, isn't it? Because if you're an atheist, does that normally mean you're kind of a lefty? And lefties kind of always fight people in authority. But if you're in the towards the right of like, the political spectrum, you kind of like strong leadership, and they tend to believe in God more. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like, if you're an atheist, you're kind of a leftist, and you're anti everything, anti organization, and anti
Yeah, yes,
capitalist.
because I think if you're atheist, you're more likely to not respect the institution of marriage, and this
Yeah.
will make the marriages and families in your society less stable than countries who do respect the institution of marriage. And maybe it's not actually possible to make people respect marriage unless you make them religious, or at least in a way force them to pretend to believe in God.
I think there's a lot of truth in that, because if you statistically look at the people who are married the longest and have the most kids, they're religious people. So there's definitely a correlation at least. Um, and I think there's good reason as well. Like, this might sound harsh on atheists, but like when you don't believe there's a God, then kind of nothing makes sense. There's no reason to do anything. There's no point. There's no purpose. And then tough things like getting married and sticking to rules, they kind of don't make sense. Like, I mean,
Yeah, it's like,
they kind
well,
of,
why
yeah,
should I? There's no point. I'm just going to be dead soon anyway. In the long run, we are all dead. Yeah, so nihilism would be a product of atheism, and it's hard to get them to do anything, including protect themselves and tell the truth and exercise logic. Because they'll think, well, even if it is true, and even if what I say is logical, no one will listen to me anyway. And so, what's the point of doing anything? It's that kind of reasoning, because they will assume failure because, obviously, assuming that this life is the one and only life we have is a pessimistic position compared to one that accepts the accepts the afterlife, where good will be rewarded and evil punished. So
yeah,
if you really did believe that, then not everything will be short term, or you might not really believe that, but you might care about your children or your grandchildren, and want them to think well of you, that kind of idea.
yeah.
But if you
That
don't
is
even
all.
have children, then it's just
Yeah,
you, and
yeah,
an atheist would not care what happens after they are dead.
yeah.
So their thinking
But
would be more selfish and
yes,
more pessimistic.
yes, absolutely.
And then less
Um,
likely to make sacrifices for the good
yes,
by telling the truth or, being
very true.
persuaded by logical
People and
arguments.
people, just so people don't think that this is like coming from a place of hate. This is like logical. Psychologists have known this kind of stuff for ages. Like, the logical and necessary conclusion to atheism is nihilism. And it's not completely obvious to people, and people might not even know what nihilism is. It's kind of like this kind of like, there's no point of anything. And actually, if you look at society, it's getting more and more suicidal. Suicidal rates are going up. Why is suicidal rate going up? Because it doesn't matter if you're alive or not. You know, there's no point. What's the point of being hanging around? Oh, and everything really becomes difficult if you're an atheist. But were you trying to say something, or are you just
No,
coughing?
no, I was just coughing, sorry.
Okay, saha, which is what Arabs say here for good health. If you hopefully get better. Anyway,
Thank you.
so the point is, like, everything becomes impossible and difficult, and you feel suicidal over really little things if you're an atheist. Like, there's a famous quote by Nietzsche: if you have a why, you can get through anyhow. And atheists don't have a why for anything. There's no point, so they can get through nothing. And I really do see that, like with I have students who are like really depressed, like really common for students to be depressed, and they have loads of money. In fact, the more money you have, the more likely you're depressed, right? And they can be on like the GPs are giving them like tons of what's it called, antidepressants and stuff like that. It's not all too common, but it's like it's sadly common, let's say, common enough. These kind of depression and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and it's just all down to not believing God. But as soon as you believe in God, you have a massive why to do everything. Like you're not even concerned what people think about you, like you were saying, like what would happen to your kids. It's like you're concerned about your duty, that God is watching you. At least that's how I think. Like
Mhm.
I'm concerned for my kids in the next life. I don't even care about like necessarily if how how many A levels they get perfectly. But part of being educated is becoming a better human being, but only to that extent. So yeah, there's like it's God is a massive why that gives you confidence, gives you reason, gives like you said, gives you the willingness to sacrifice, which is a completely necessary part of a human being of or growth of a human being to like
Or
give up. Yeah,
principles,
go on.
or have principles that you will defend. The principle of, well, speaking the truth, or saying, well, it's a sound argument, and therefore we should go along with the logic of this argument. But now, it's like, why who cares about the truth? Who cares about the argument? It's
People
about
don't say
getting
that, but what
people.
you're saying is totally true. Because people are not going to say like Mike. We've had Mike on loads of times, and he'll sometimes he'll agree. Like we saw a video of him the other day, isn't it? Atheist politely agreed with the Muslim or something, even though the title was completely wrong. It was like atheist was what was it?
Humbled.
Humbled, which is totally wrong. He was already relatively humble, which is kind of good,
Mhm.
Mike. But like loads of times with Mike, he'll start agreeing, but then when he has to actually do something about changing his life, he'll start making excuses, right?
Mhm.
And have silly argument. So I forgot my argument. What was I going to say? What was I talking about? Forgot. Totally forgot.
I've forgotten too. I don't know why you
Okay,
were
never mind.
talking about Mike.
I
Uh,
think we just argue about, oh, there's like no point in following the truth. That's what it was. Like
mhm.
nobody openly says we're not following the truth, okay? But there's no reason to follow the truth if you're an atheist because nothing matters. You're gonna be dead, you're gonna be stardust again. It all doesn't matter, right? But if God is watching you and you've got to make the right choice before you go back to meet him, as it were, you're going to try your best to get things right and follow whatever the truth is, right? You've got a reason to do it. Um, yeah. So,
Yes, so as far as I can see it, um, yes. Sorry, I was going to talk about Vincent because
okay.
he goes on about positive thinking and he thinks it's stupid. And I thought, well, believing in God is the ultimate in positive thinking, isn't it? Believing that good will be rewarded and evil punished is the ultimate in positive thinking. And he could actually think of an argument against that because I was saying, well, you would want to believe that good will be rewarded and evil punished, wouldn't you? Doesn't anyone want to believe in it? And then his answer was, well, what if it isn't true?
Yeah.
What if it isn't true that good will be rewarded and evil punished? And so I said, but if it were true, you would want to believe in it, wouldn't you? And 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 um, whether it's true or not, belief that good will be rewarded and evil punished will make it easier for us to do the right thing, and
Mm.
and therefore make our societies um, have lower crime and
Did
higher
he
tax.
agree with that, or did he just keep going? But maybe it's not true.
I think he sort of got the argument and then he wanted to change the subject because I kept returning to
Exactly.
this
He
line of
didn't. He,
argument.
he didn't want to learn something. He just wanted to keep arguing.
Well, I guess he wants to avoid the logic of these conclusions because on the one hand he is complaining about immigration and how badly things are going, and that he's the only person with a solution with this artificial wounds. I was saying we should do what our ancestors did without much questioning and restore. Um, government support for marriage, which does mean um, making casual sex, well, difficult, shall we say.
Hmm. Uncle Simon. Do you remember Uncle Simon? Do you meet him from Speaker's Corner? Relatively quiet Irish guy.
I
Uh,
I don't,
maybe.
vaguely.
Convert to Islam, but on the sidelines, a bit quiet about it. Anyway, so nice to have you here, Simon, as well.
Hi,
Do
Simon.
come down to Jordan sometime, or whatever. WhatsApp me, or so if you've ever got WhatsApp working. Anyway, so but nice to have you here, Simon. Okay, Uncle Simon. Um, okay, yeah, that's so true. There, people have no reason to do anything, including following the truth, because they don't um, feel there's any. Oh, I was going to say no benefit, but it's so obvious that there's benefit, but yet they rather be right than actually fix their lives, which is what we're doing here, by the way. Like, I have no need to be right. Actually, I've probably said this a couple of times. I would love to be wrong because then I'd have no responsibility to make these live streams. Claire was telling me something like, "You're just a hobbyist" or something. I was like, "Yeah, that's a good thing. I kind of like hobbies." But anyway, I like my point is like I'm kind of eager not to do live streams, just so Claire knows as well. Like, I'm eager to be selfish and do nothing, but I only do this because fear of God. Like, God knows what I know, and I have a responsibility to do this, and that's the only reason why I do it, right? So that's kind of the benefit of believing God. You just do, and yeah, I should make clear, like, um, by doing these things I have I have to make sacrifices to do, I end up having a much better time. Like, I could be like really selfish and do nothing, but then I'd have no friends, no interesting friends, no interesting conversations, none of all this interesting stuff. But it's only a side product, or side, what's the word, side, whatever. Anyway,
Side
um
effect.
side effect, thank you. So of doing things for the greater good, for no actual personal direct benefit, and then you get lots of benefits. If you try to get happiness directly, it never works. Like, if you take drugs or try to can buy things by just to get yourself happy, it never works. But if you do
Mm.
things for no obvious direct personal benefit, it really works. Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, I mean, it is a compulsion, really, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
people might say, well, why do you go on and on saying the same thing again and again, week after week? What good has it done? You're just surrounded by crazy, stupid, nasty people anyway, so what is the point? You know? And I suppose the answer must be, well, we feel better anyway for having expressed our feelings, or said what we believe to be the truth.
Yes, for that. Like, it's not about me sharing my feelings. I can't be bothered. I don't really. I'm too much of a. I'm going to use all the bad words that people misuse, but I'm a psychopath. I don't really care about your feelings already. Like, I'm really like psychopath. For the people who don't understand the meaning of that, is like you don't have the normal social kind of compulsions that make you feel like you have to be agreeable and stuff like that. I already don't care what you think. I don't care about sharing my feelings with you, right? But it is to do with telling the truth. And when you tell the truth, you feel better as a human being. You feel more confident. You feel good about yourself as a human being, or whatever. I already said that.
It's a problem. It's probably a bit like waste disposal. We have to go to the loo, but obviously, it would be bad if you couldn't go to the loo. I mean, people have died of not being able to go to the loo, and it's like,
Really?
okay, if you're going to, uh, talk about what people say. But it is a release. I mean, you can imagine if somebody decided to inflict corporal punishment on you, and they said you can't say ow, you can't even cry out in pain.
Okay,
That would make it even more painful, I imagine.
probably.
So so I think a lot of what people say online is just it's like that's on my mind. I can only
No,
talk
but it's
about
not
Jews or how much
always
I hate
helpful.
Muslims or
The
whatever.
reason why you do things matters. So there's loads of people on X, which I never use, but I always hear about how toxic it is, right? There's loads of people just being nasty there, and they're just getting more miserable. So it doesn't matter why you're doing things, just sharing your feelings or just letting loose on other people, that's not actually helpful. Do you agree? The why you do it, and the why has to be essentially spreading the truth, really spreading the truth, not just trying to win an argument, even if you know you're wrong. Do you get that? Do you agree there's a massive difference? There's loads of toxic
Yes,
people who
yes.
just
I mean,
make
obviously,
themselves more
some people
miserable.
have more constructive messages than others.
Yeah, but the source of everything matters. Like in Islam, okay, I'm going to talk about two things. So in Islam, there's two things because you mentioned something, and I feel like it's worth going into. First of all, deeds are judged by motives. Ever heard of that or intentions? That's a
Hmm,
saying,
hmm.
right? So everything, the it's not what you do, but the why you do it is the most essential. Because you can't always control the what. Sometimes you can't control everything, the outcomes, and all this kind of stuff. But why you do everything is the key thing, right? If you are debating to be right because of an egotistical trip, then that's going to be bad for you. If you're debating, on the other hand, because you're doing your best to help the world because you have a responsibility, that's completely different result on you. In turn, it'll make you happy. The first one, trying to prove you're right, will just make you miserable. The second one, doing it because it's right, even if you lose the debate, whatever, you'll be fine, you'll be happier. And then the other thing was, like, you said something about what's the point of repeating things over and over again. There's another verse of the Quran that says, most certainly, repetition, reminder is profitable, i.e., people are, you have to remember, people are stupid. We're all really stupid. Like, so if you hear the thing one time, you might not really get it. Then you might
In
hear
one
it
ear
10
and out
years
the other, as my
one
mother
year,
would
but also
say.
you become, like, you might hear something and not really understand it at that time. You're not really fully developed
Mm,
to understand it, but you might hear something else we might say, and that might develop you, and then a thing that we've said 100 times before, you will finally start getting it. In fact, I will finally start getting it. I might repeat something, and I'm learning from the videos that I'm learning right now from this, like, oh, I need to be more patient, I need to be more humble. Like, I'm constantly learning that one.
hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's
um
all about applying principles. So we may, learn, we may know the form of words, but, patience, we can talk about it and still be impatient and, not get round to actually being patient until a bit later.
Very true. There's another verse of the Quran that says something like, and this hypocrisy is really bad, wasn't it? Like, God hates, or God really hates, a person who says something and doesn't do it. Do you know that one?
Hypocrites.
Yeah, which is a
I
hypocrite,
think,
basically.
yes, yes.
Okay, and that's so true. Like, don't be. I mean, everybody even knows it's obviously not good to be a hypocrite, I guess, because it sounds terrible and stupid. But like, it's not.
Apparently, you go to hell. According to the Quran, hypocrites go to hell.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Mm.
Um and but it's not healthy. Like you're saying, you kind of need to apply your principles. And it makes me think about, like when you were talking about atheists don't really have principles. Maybe a lot of atheists would be pretty angry about that idea. But the whole, like, what are British values? Like, I'm sure when British people are more religious, they you could clearly say what their values are. But right now, you, like, really have to think, what are British values? Democracy, is that a British value or something? I don't know.
Yes, yes.
um
Tolerance for others, and just the usual, liberal claptrap. Hmm.
okay, that's interesting. Maybe I don't know. Is that a British value? I mean, like at the moment, if you're
It's
really British,
whatever Parliament says it is, basically, but it's British, so we all feel all patriotic and proud to be British. But they just tell us, well, British values are now this, even though, last year
really,
we said
have
it
when
was
do they
that.
like publish these British values? I think they make you do. My wife had to do a test on that to become British, get a
Yes,
passport.
there was a citizenship test, and I
Yeah,
remember, the old British saying, I never would have passed with the citizenship of
no
my own
Brit would pass
country, and I've
it.
been living here for 60 years, so.
Yeah, yeah. What are British values? And that's the result of atheism, basically. So I think you made a really good point about that. Like when there's atheism, there's nihilism, which is like, what's the point of everything? And then there's no principles, no nothing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah. Democracy, the rule of law, tolerance for others, and the usual claptrap. But before I forget, what you said about principles made me think of Buddhism. So Buddhism has these sort of vague principles, like the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths, and you might be able to repeat them, but you won't be able to apply them. And most Buddhists don't apply them. They might be able to reel it
because they're
off if
so
they
vague.
bother learning it. Yeah, they're so vague. But what people want is don't do this, whatever it is. And
Which is why people love Islam, I think. It's so black and white. It's like, don't do
or,
this, do
or
that.
hate it because it's too
And hate
black
it.
and
Yes,
white.
loads of people hate Islam for that as well. Yeah, because it actually has rules. What was in it? What was that? Whatever, Triple J John. What was his name? The one who's like always he used to join JJ Steve.
Jaywalker?
No,
The Stephen J. James?
the he's a streamer and he used to join the
Stephen
young
J.
guy.
James? Young
That one.
guy?
What was the last one? What was the last one you
Stephen
said?
J. James.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, yeah. It's like Prophet Muhammad was what was it called? Like because he just makes so many rules. He called him something.
Autistic?
Autistic. It's like, oh, too
Maybe.
many rules. It's like,
Well, he
come on,
likes
man.
accusing me of being autistic.
Yeah, well, because you have rules and logic and stuff like that. It's just silly, man. But anyway, yeah. So let's do a wind up. Claire, wind up for this stream. What are your thoughts that you want to summarize with?
Well, I think we should, maybe be able to um, apply the principle of humility, and I thought of a good example. So, if you come, um, if you and somebody else are fighting for something, and you're saying me first, and the other person is saying me first, you're bound to come to a fight. But if one says after you, and no, and the other says no after you, that will be more quickly resolved than each party saying me first.
Totally agree. And my summary is going to be like, first of all, why are we talking about this? First of all, relationships are down the toilet. All kinds of relationships are going down the toilet between parents, between husband and wife, between whatever. Like we said in the beginning, Christmas is the worst time for family conflict, which is a really sad statistic. Okay, and where does it all come from? Because we all want to be right, which is the most stupid idea. How can we all be right? Yeah. So we need some humility to get some real perspective. I love that sort of accidental thumbnail, which is like humility gives us humanity, and that's so true. Like when we're just arguing, being arrogant, there's no connection between us. We don't feel the humanity of other people. So that's a really good reason to be humble. And the way to be humble is patience, like control those emotions, give it a bit of time before you respond and things like that. Um,
And be a
and
good listener.
I love, yes, very true. Yes, be a good listener. That's kind of the things I've been trying to encourage a lot on these in some of my streams. People think they're good at listening. It's if you there's somebody wrote a book about seduction, and one of the most seductive things to do is truly listen. And the way you truly listen is somebody talks for a while, and then you go, oh, that's really interesting, and you prove that you were listening by repeating something back to them and asking them a question about that thing. And people feel really connected. And if they're really connected, guess what? You're going to be feeling closer. Your conflict is going to die out really quickly. And the whole after you thing is a beautiful thing. Like, if you're enemies, you're not going to listen to each other. But if you're like, I'm your best friend, oh, you go first, whatever, yeah, that will probably resolve, the emotional conflict behind the silly debate that probably is not important. And that's what I want to finish. Actually, the two things I want to finish with. First of all, most conflicts are stupid, really stupid. Like, I've got a conflict with my wife at the moment, and she has to struggle to think what her problem with me is, right? So we realize we both deep down know most issues are really, really dumb. They don't need to be there. Save your relationships. Just remember they're really stupid. And then I want to come back to the passport bros thing. Like, one of the reasons why we're even talking about this, I want you guys, Simon, get your son out to either, like, I'll help you, because Simon's son, I don't know, still is not in a relationship. Do tell me if I'm wrong or right, Simon? Keep up the great work, George Galloway. Something. What are you saying here? Is Simon responding? Yes, listen to people, let them finish what they're saying. Very true, very true. Okay. So I want you white men, because I think it's mostly men listening to this anyway. So YouTube tends to work for fact-based videos. I want you white men to go out to the east if you can afford it, and there are some very cheap places out there. And I'm trying to make Ghana more accessible. It's a bit difficult at the moment, but maybe the Philippines is an easier start. Um, that's a whole process. Maybe we need to do a video why Ghana is difficult, but it will make it become easier. But I would love Liam to have a wife. Yes, exactly. I really want to help you out as well. And you, once we've sorted Liam out, we're going to sort you out, Simon, as well. Everybody has to, even if they're older, they should be with somebody. So, yeah, the whole passport bros thing's a really nice idea, I think. But the problem is there will be cultural differences, and again, you need the patience and humility to get through those problems. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. That's all
Thank
I'm
you
going
for
to say.
having me.
Oh, thank you for always being here as well. I really appreciate that. Otherwise, it would be pretty difficult, me just talking by myself. So thank you for being regular. It would be, really, it's true. I've had that many times, that problem in the past. All right. Thank you.
Thank
Bye. Catch you
you.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.